What insider secrets does the company you work for not want its customers to find out? The major gym chain that I work for actively tries to discourage members from becoming frequent members. How do they do this? They would start by cutting treadmills and elliptical out of order, or preventative maintenance, and would keep them out of commission until attendance got to manageable levels where the gym did not feel so crowded and thus easier to sell memberships, and getting out of a membership was damn near impossible. My LPT for joining a gym is to use a reloadable Visa gift card as the payment card for your membership. If there was a time when there wasn't enough money to cover my automatically withdrawn fee, I would just be like, oops, let me check my account, and then just transfer money to it. And if there were ever a time I decided I didn't like the gym anymore or just didn't give a fuck about exercising anymore, I would just not go. With the gift card being my payment method, there is no way they could keep charging me $50 a month even if I wasn't going and didn't feel like writing a request and sending it off to corporate in order to request my membership termination, only to have them take their sweet ass time while money was still being drawn from my actual bank account. I don't know how you can get away with that. I'm still fighting a $1,000 membership that's in collections, that was forged on a contract I didn't agree to. It was 5 years ago too. I found out my contract was altered when I called to cancel my month-to-month and was told I had to call the major chain headquarters. Later when I explained that my contract was altered and the girl had actually been fired for fraud, they said that's he said she said. It didn't help that I just moved once I found out and couldn't find the copy of my contract. My LPT about signing gym memberships, or any contract for that matter, do not let them leave the room without giving you your copy first. I worked for 2 years at a call center for Cox Cable doing tech support for internet and TV. It's more important for the techs to get you off the phone than to actually resolve your problem. Don't blame the techs. They've got supervisors breathing down their necks, and the supervisors are breathing down their necks because customers complain about being on hold so much. When I was doing it 3 years ago, calls had a limit of 7.5 minutes. 7.5 minutes to take your info, diagnose your problem, give you a solution, and resolve the call, not the problem. If the call goes over 7:30 minutes, a supervisor would come over and ask what was going on. I got in trouble so many times for genuinely trying to help people. It was disgusting. One time I spent a good 30 minutes on the phone with a guy in San Diego who was setting up his internet. He was old, slow, and computer illiterate but really nice and patient, so I did everything I could and eventually got him going. He was thrilled, spoke with my supervisor to tell them how happy he was with me. I got written up for that because I wasted time helping one person when I could have been fake, helping many others. I've heard plenty of stories just like this from the other cable companies and the call centers they contract out. Basically, for an inbound call center, the people in charge just care about clearing the calls in the queue, not helping you. No matter what scripted bullshit they make the techs say. And again, don't blame the techs for this, at least, their hands are tied. Also, cable companies are hemorrhaging television customers and will suck your dick to keep you from cutting television service. Threaten to leave, name Dish Network or something, and they'll shower you with discounts. Don't say I don't watch much TV but do mention competitors. Keep pressing for more till they outright refuse. Then cut the cord when those discounts end. Edit. Let me just clarify that good phone workers can manage to average out their call times, and the easy ones quickly so they have more time for the long ones. Problem is, on the call floor during a call you'll get harassed by supervisors that will tell you to just roll a truck if the call goes too long. Regardless of your average call time, the customer is charged for the truck, which may not even help them. It creates undue pressure on these workers, especially on the new ones, and defeats the whole purpose of a helpline. I used to work for IBM. It was well known within IBM that all projects would be significantly understaffed. This meant that the people working on those projects would work their ass off. We were all salaried employees, so we made no more money by working 80 hours per week compared to the normal 40 hours per week. IBM did make more money, however, since most of our projects were billed as time and materials, effectively hourly. When some internal people started complaining about the excessive overtime, IBM offered them the option of becoming an hourly employee. This meant that they no longer had access to healthcare, 401k etc., but they would be making significantly more money, in some cases more than doubling their previous salary, since they would be getting paid for every hour worked. IBM didn't think many people would choose the hourly option, thinking that their benefits plan was enough to keep people there as salaried employees. Of those that were offered the option, something like 95% chose to become hourly. Every single person that chose the hourly option was fired within 1 month. That meant that some projects that were already understaffed were even more understaffed. Many projects were cancelled or delayed because IBM chose to use these employees as an example of what happens when you complain too loudly. Oh yes, IBM. Their one talent appears to be crafting bomb-proof contracts. They'd underbid projects, completely screw the pooch on delivery, but the customer was stuck with them for the duration because they met the terms of the contract. I subbed for them once. I'm amazed that their professional services arm stays in business. It's exactly like you described. Customer was a government entity and the relationship was very adversarial. IBM had 3 times as many managers as engineers on the project, which actually makes sense when you realize the goal is to deliver nothing and charge as much as possible for it. Their one talent appears to be crafting bomb-proof contracts. They'd underbid projects, completely screw the pooch on delivery, but the customer was stuck with them for the duration because they met the terms of the contract. Holy shit, it is like you are describing the situation my company is in with IBM right now. Keep in mind, we aren't some little small business either. We are a F1000. IBM completely fucked us in exactly the manner you are describing. We thought we were on top of the game, but man are they good when it comes to precisely what you said. They worded the contract so well on their end we didn't even know how fucked we were getting until we were months into it. We started to realize that their laws were perfect for them. There was zero flexibility either. They went letter of the law mode on us. I think it is because IBM bid for 2 contracts with us, and received the significantly smaller one. Ironically enough, because our due diligence team was drastically more experienced on the large contract and caught IBM in their bullshit beforehand. The funny part was all they did was basically put up their hands in a "you got me" sort of way. They didn't even rebid for it because they either wanted to fuck us or not have it. We gave them the smaller contract before this one was decided though. So when they saw they weren't getting the big money, and that we already weren't happy with the service on the first one, they just started going full profit mode. They weren't trying to repeat business. It was like they accepted they weren't getting it, so they just wanted to squeeze every drop out of the contract they did have with us. I had such a massive different opinion of IBM before this shit. They had actually tried to recruit some of us away. Thank fucking God I didn't go. Everyone I know who works for them hates it. It is almost an Amazon level of hate. Whenever IBM changed from being a hardware company to a service desk company, their culture changed along with it. I feel bad for anyone stateside who works for them. The layoffs are just going to keep coming as they squeeze more and more profit by pulling from South America and Asia. They don't have to do it, but they are basically min-maxing as a company right now. It is going to fuck them in the long run. Eventually everyone is onto your game and repeat business will matter. I worked for IBM Software Group 2002 to 2006. It's a total clusterfuck. I am still in awe that unsuspecting customers pay for that shit, under some bullshit disguise of, nobody got fired for buying IBM. Yes they fucking did, you gullible twit. A close friend of mine gets $3,000 a month for life from IBM because his project lead was pushing everyone to use cocaine, ultimately got them hooked on it, to counter the severe understaffing. He also said mental breakdowns were rampant throughout many projects. Pizza Hut, we aren't super sanitary. Extra cheese comes on a cheese pizza. The $10 coupon code is 2,155. If you tell them you are an employee and use the $10 coupon code, you get a large for 8.80. Most of us do not care about discounts, and sometimes tack them on to be nice. Edit, if you really want something cool, ask them to use half toppings. Fold and crimp your pan pizza in half before putting it in the oven, and top it with the Parmesan parsley mix. Boom, you now have a pizzone. Also, stuffed crust pan pizzas totally exist for employees. Oh man, I used to work for a department store. I would try to get people deals all the time. During back to school season, I remember this lady came in and I saved her nearly $100 by breaking up the sale and entering in coupons manually. She didn't even ask, I just did it for the fuck of it. I didn't get a whole lot of chances to do this at Walmart, but one time a dad and his son came to electronics to buy a game for $50.60. I price matched for $20 cause I had seen it at that price for somewhere else. Can't remember if I even told them that I changed it or not. I work for a mortgage company. 2 things. 1. If you're being foreclosed upon and can afford an attorney, fight it. The number of foreclosures that could have been invalidated if the borrower did something, as opposed to not showing up at all, which is what most do, is higher than one would think. 2. If you refinance, sell your house, or pay off your mortgage, get a copy of your lien release, preferably the recorded one. I can't tell you how many phone calls I get where a sale is being held up because a lien release was never prepared. Former employee for a computer refurbishing company that sells computers on Amazon, mostly Dell and HP desktops, as well as Lenovo, HP and Dell laptops, mostly Core 2 Duo, with a few first and second generation i5 and i3s mixed in. 1. We violate Amazon seller TOS by having 4 storefronts selling the exact same items. This spreads out negative feedback to prevent any storefront from being shut down. We have 2 Canada-themed and 2 USA-themed storefronts to fool buyers and Amazon from thinking we're 4 different companies, when in reality, the whole operation is done inside a dark warehouse and somewhere without air conditioning in the summer heat. 2. The insides of these systems were all hacked together. For a while we used silicone adhesive instead of thermal paste. Twist ties to hold hard disks. The radius cables we could find, cleaned up to look nice. Mismatched RAM sticks that will result in headaches later on. Hard disks meant for video surveillance that has poor random I/O performance that will cause you to tear your hair out when you get random inexplicable lag. Cables taped together. Power supplies with questionable capacitors. 3. BIOS hacks to defeat safety interlocks. Specific models of computers throw fan errors caused by fans gumming up and spinning too slow. This prevents booting. Therefore I heard from a coworker that another person patches this out in the BIOS in order for booting to continue with a damaged fan, which, combined with using silicone adhesive as thermal paste, conveniently overheats the CPU outside the return period. 4. Quality assurance boils down to 2 things. 1. Make sure the outside is visually appealing, and 2. The insides hold up to software checks. Everything else is open season. Feel free to ship out a machine caked full of dust, as long as it works and looks nice. I even stuck giant stickers with a giant dick butt scrawled on it inside the machine and they pass without question since the quality assurance doesn't even inspect inside the machine. 5. Cracked and pirated software galore. While we properly activate Windows, everything else is pirated. We have machines that run uTorrent all the time and we mostly preload pirate Microsoft Office 2013 and 2016 and crack it with KM-Spico, and whitelist the crack tool for the customer because the AV detects it as malware. Other favorites were preloaded and pre-cracked Photoshop, CorelDRAW, some CAD thing, and I think we also preloaded Sony Vegas. 6. The free tech support team sticker on the machine is a lie. It's actually picked up by technicians who attend to your call while they are preparing the machines for shipping. And we 50-50 answer questions because we are preoccupied with the millions of things going on at the same time. 7. From day one, it is hammered into you that multitasking is preferable to making great quality machines. I literally tried to make each machine there as if I was building it for myself, which means proper assembly, pick parts, complete screws, Coincidentally, my machines were the lowest RMA percentage they ever had. I once even went months without even having a single return. That was unheard of. However, that literally was impossible to continue with because you will be tagged for it for being too slow. 8. The customers who come in person are usually jerks. There is this one guy that keeps reselling computers who I put a happy smiley face on while I listen to his millions of ridiculous demands, like making a hard disk system and expecting it to run as fast as an SSD-based one. I literally spend half a day doing machines for that one person, since the smallest defect, even one's QA will pass, would mean a large screaming match. 9. Tax evasion and welfare fraud are pretty common themes in that place. The management pays cash under the table after some hours have passed because, to quote, they don't want to pay extra taxes and shit with the government. One close supplier brags how he is under welfare while making a steady cash, only income sourcing and supplying parts. Another person brags about making his fortune cash only and paying no taxes to the government. 10. Safety. What safety? The warehouse is dark, with the lights off to save energy, and temperatures inside 90°F with almost unbearable humidity because they are too cheap for air conditioning. We don't even have proper ladders, or not enough time to get a ladder. Once, we stacked up desktop PCs and formed stairs out of them to get to those storage racks 15 feet in the air. Employees climbing the metal bars like a jungle gym without fall protection, and walking on a flimsy storage rack with no gutter rails, and you can fall into piles of scrap plastic and metal. And tripping everywhere. Honestly, there is more stuff I can write, but I know I am late on this thread and this post won't gain any readers anymore. Update. Didn't know it was going to gain this much attention, so a few more extras. 11. About that silicone adhesive as thermal paste I mentioned earlier. It's literally silicone adhesive, the kind you'd use to seal cracks in houses and on your bathtub. It boasts great thermal insulation, which means it's not the best replacement for thermal paste. I pointed this out to MR. Welfare fraud, and you won't believe what he said. I have been building computers longer than you have lived. Beck. 12. We have a curated program that scans the hard disk and gives a percentage of how healthy it is. Perfect hard disks without bad sectors or mechanical issues. 100% health. Go to online orders. Orders going to physical, in-person stores are open season. Employees are encouraged to place hard disks with bad sectors, spin up retry issues, and every other hard disks with issues to people who order in person. Basically anything 80% and over is acceptable, despite the fact that an 80% fair hard disk could be 20% bad or even 10% crucial. Tomorrow. 13. Oh, those 100% healthy hard disks going to Amazon customers. The software we use is not designed for quick tests. It is meant for long-term installs, as it monitors the hard disk performance over time, weeks, months, years, and compares performance statistics to spot degradation of the hard disk and warn you accordingly. It will not give a spot on accurate reading in the few hours it is used to test that hard disk before it's shipped out. So yes, that 100% hard disk could also be dead in a matter of a few months, since the test software did not catch it. And it has happened, as a few RMAs would suggest. If you want to play Russian roulette with your data, buying a refurb PC from Amazon and not backing up is the best way to do it. 14. One person close to management does not believe in Memtest 86 Plus and thinks it's a waste of time. According to this person, all that is needed to test RAM is to plug it in and see if it boots up. However, this is bad because memory issues can slowly corrupt your data and cause random inexplicable blue screens. And I have not seen quality assurance perform Memtests before shipping it out to Amazon customers. And we definitely don't Memtest machines before giving it out to local people. 15. About pirated software. Just to clarify, we fully activate Windows for Amazon customers. Orders going to local shops don't get activated, or are activated automatically by the BIOS slick, or are activated with a cracked software called Windows 7 Loader, are also whitelisted because it's detected as malware. 16. Laptop batteries. Oh, laptop batteries. We ship them if they charge, even though they have 60% of their original capacity. As long as it does not trigger the "please consider replacing your battery" message on Windows, it's a pass. The worst battery I shipped, under approval from supervisor, was a moderate L battery, holding 3 hours on idle. I'm pretty sure it dropped to an hour under any reasonable load. 17. About laptop batteries again. Management sources them from interesting places, while the technicians usually don't know where the battery came from. We once received a load of new batteries. Apparently these batteries were from warranty returns and recalls that were supposed to be dismantled and recycled. Sure, we recycle these recalled batteries by shipping them out to unsuspecting customers. 18. Sometimes we kill Windows Update to improve performance, especially for the person who resells computers. Yes, we know it's malware risk, but as long as it is fast and the customer is happy for 30 days, we don't give a toss. 19. Before I was let go, there were talks of creating gaming machines. Management is completely clueless about this. First they wanted to sell an outdated Harpertown 2007 Xeon-based dual CPU setup with an NVIDIA Quadro, massively marked up of course. I don't know if they went ahead to sell it to the customer, but I am sorry for the person who was suckered into buying that thing. 20. And despite all of this, management actually wants to apply for Microsoft certification. Yes, despite using cracks and hacks and pirated software. I just don't even. I've worked with another Amazon partner in a similar industry and had similar experiences. Amazon takes some precaution to reduce the TOS violations for number 1, but they're easy to bypass with a decent guy. The one thing that caught my eye though was number 5. Are you aware of the bounties for reporting that kind of piracy to the Business Software Alliance, BSA, Report Piracy Now, case webpage? I used to work for a tax service. I don't want to get in trouble, so let's call them Liberty LAX Service. The people that they hire to do your taxes have at most 2 weeks of training. When I was there, I knew people who didn't even have that, usually only a week. They will charge you $99 per form for your taxes, by the way. Edit, because some have asked. From my time there, I've learned that the people that are targeted are most often the ones in need, who don't know about the opportunities available to them. I know also for a fact that the call center had specific lists of clients based on what they filed the previous years. So if a client previously had something where they filed and claimed government assistance, they were called at a specific month. If they were in certain income bracket, once again, called at a certain month. The scummiest thing, however, that I observed was the sales tactic they used. Most often, you'd be offered a free quote. Come in, let them see your paperwork and they'll tell you what you can get. What would often happen, however, is that you go in, they would go through the entire process of filing your return, and at the end, you'd basically be pressured into paying because they already did all the work. And if it turned out that you couldn't pay at the moment, there was also the convenient option of just subtracting the amount from the return itself. Oh, and the return? Yet, cross your fingers on getting it. And if you do get it, let's hope you're not audited. At the time of me leaving, the franchise was facing a class action lawsuit from a lot of the previous year's clients. But of course, that only happened because this location happened to be in a wealthier neighborhood. Edit 2. I actually did a little research on the matter, and I happened to actually find this NI web page. Now, I'm not saying that this is the place I worked, but it is 99.9% similar. The big difference, as I said, is that the place I worked for was Liberty LAX Service. This was quite obvious at H&R Block. We went there for advice because we had to deal with my Form 2555. I just moved to the US and also the healthcare exemptions, but the poor woman barely knew what a 1040 was. We ended up helping her. Don't ever use H&R Block, especially if your taxes are more complicated than a single W-2. They know nothing and will fuck your shit up. I watched one agent working in a H&R Block portable trailer office in the Sears parking lot continuously enter misspellings and wrong numbers into the computer while filling out my forms. If I wasn't there to correct her every time, who knows what would have happened. Find an accountant who runs his or her own tax business. You'll never look at a chain tax place again. Edit. Of course, not everyone at H&R Block is incompetent, but I stand by the advice. Find a professional independent accountant who's making their living by doing the job right the first time. Even better if you find someone who has their own building and staff working for them. That means they probably do business solutions and taxes for small businesses in the area, so it's pretty safe to assume they know their shit. Dealing with the IRS because of fucked up tax work is something you don't want in your life. I worked as a delivery driver for a few pizza places, and while they check to make sure your car has insurance, personal insurance doesn't cover use of cars for business purposes. Essentially, unless drivers are carrying very expensive commercial insurance, they would have no coverage if in an accident. To add to this, one of the nationwide companies I worked for had a policy in place to combat this. If you're in an accident, policy was to remove your car topper and uniform and be off the clock. The last job I was at was a family-owned steel supplier in the Northeast US. They carried I-beams, angles, flats, tube, pipe, plate and more. They basically did prefab work, cutting product to length. In some cases, mostly government jobs, the customer would specify domestic material only. If they did not have it, they would have us grind off the heat numbers, a code that offers traceability to the plant it was made, down to the composition of material. A foreign material to sell as domestic with doctored mill certs. Shady practice with dire consequences. Edit. I thought I should add that I can only confirm doing this 2 times, maybe a third, but I really tried to block that place out due to the lack of responsibility ethics of the management. The last few years were really bad. Edit 2, as a lot of people are insisting me to report. I wanted to say that had I known then what I know now, I most certainly would report. This was 10 years ago, and I would not be able to tell you the name of the customers or even a close date of when it exactly happened. I know there was a few pieces of square tubing, 4, 5 or 6 inch, and some cut I-beams, but the rest of the details are foggy. My steel professor once told us, if it will kill someone when it fails, make sure it's not Chinese. US produced steel, while expensive, is held to much tighter tolerances and is produced at a much higher standard. Edit. My steel design professor. I don't think I could afford tuition at a school with professors of steel. I know somebody who works for a German company that produces concrete and beds. He says they've had a factory in China for years that, to the shame of its perfectionist German overseers, has failed to produce anything because none of the steel passes QA. I used to work in the steel industry, and that's serious shit. With structural steel, the heat numbers and mill brands are there so people know who to sue when a building collapses. It's an even bigger deal in nuke. People will go to prison for that shit. More accurately, traceability is to prevent the catastrophe prior to any scenario that would require a lawsuit. OP has a moral and probably professional duty to report this ASAP. You don't have to get a JED. It's just one type of high school equivalency, but JED is synonymous with that concept so people don't know there are other options. Pearson likes it that way because they can charge $120 per test, with most of that money going to Pearson. Pearson doesn't want you to know that, depending on availability, you can also take the HISIT or the TASC battery of tests for half the price or less. Until a few years ago, before Pearson stepped in, the JED cost $10 to $20 in most places. Edit. Not all colleges accept all forms of high school equivalency, and often the HISIT or TASC can be almost as expensive as the JED. Unfortunately, it's complicated and you have to do your research. Depending on where you live, you might be screwed either way. Added context because I didn't expect this to blow up. For decades the JED was dirt cheap because people who need a JED are usually broke. And then magically when education giant Pearson showed up, everybody had to charge 10 times as much because one of the easiest ways to get rich in America is to exploit poor people. I work in testing in between Pearson and College Board. I'm not sure who the bigger devil is, but it is sickening how much money they make. CB still charges $25 to send official score copies out, which is literally a piece of paper in an envelope. That's after they have charged you $80, $120 plus for the exam itself. They own a Cuplacer SAT AP Springboard and CLEP, with the Cuplacer Suite being the cheapest to administer, but I bet money it is administered far more than the others, as a majority of the states use it as their placement exam, and it cost around $20-25 to administer the full test. I just tested 128 people today for it, so they are banking. I get sick thinking how much of test taking is owned between the two companies and just how much they profit off people. It has nearly ruined my job, because of the ethical blurriness I get from it. I didn't realize how fucked the whole situation was until Texas took on that C, which is an Cuplacer exam. Texas previously used the Cuplacer for placement, but they basically paid CB to develop a new test for Texas and guinea pig the future of placement examinations. The test is utter BS and it infuriates me to no end. Sorry for the rant. Edited for format, and I'm on my phone. I hate how for American schools you are virtually required to take the SAT, unless you're applying to one of a handful of test optional schools. It's $60 each time plus $25 to send it. Then add SAT 2 exams, which are required by some universities. Then add AP exams, which are also required by some universities. The AP exams I took were $90 each. $90. And it was school policy for me to take AP exams for the AP level classes I took, even if I know I wouldn't get a good enough score to be exempt from the class in college. Looking at you, calculus. I ended up taking 7. At 17, that was a month's worth of income for me. I was so mad. And then another $25 to send them. I wasn't poor enough for the fee waiver, but the College Board probably got $1,000 out of me total when all was said and done. Fuck the College Board. I worked for a home security company. 2 big secrets. 1. About 90% of the salesmen are lying douchebags that will say anything to get you to sign up and then think they can hold a contract against you, but if you complain enough to the right people, the legal department will cancel your contract outright. 2. The equipment is super cheap despite the fact that they tell you that you are basically paying for the equipment over the length of your contract so that you don't have a huge up-front cost. The parts for an average home with an 8-piece system, panel included, only run about $800 at cost, if that, but it depends on the stuff you get, but you will pay out several thousand over the length of your initial 3 or 5 year contract. Any extensions on top of your initial contract with no new equipment or services is money straight into the pocket of the company. Monitoring ends up costing the company a few cents a day when you break enough systems across enough operators. If peace of mind is worth that to you, then go ahead and sign up. Monitoring service is excellent, but the equipment is shit. If you have a central station alarm system, be sure to mention to your insurance broker agent. Most homeowners' policy have a discount for having a system in place, which could justify some of the cost. Sounds like you should open up your own home security company. Undercut your former employers but still make enough to poach the good sales and install guys, and still make a reasonable profit. He might not realize that while the cost of equipment alone is super cheap, there are other overhead costs to consider. The company had to pay a lot of money for the security system infrastructure, and they have to pay people to monitor and maintain it. The $40 monthly fee is well worth the comfort it brings to my wife. We didn't get a huge system, just the doors and some motion sensors. I work at a big store in the Netherlands, and at the end of every advertisement week we have to make sure the shelves are almost empty so it will look like almost everything sold out and the products we sell are popular. In reality, we still have a lot in the stockroom, but this way people will buy it faster because 1, it's on sale, 2, it's almost sold out, 3, it's a popular product, 4, they think the company as a whole is doing a great job. It isn't really a big secret, but I thought it's quite funny. Edit, the regular shelves are well stocked. I only meant the shelves that are for the advertised products of that week. This is why customers ask if you have more in the back, and then employees get mad. I will always tell the tale of the Nintendo Wii that actually was behind the counter. It had just come out and it was sold out everywhere. When a new shipment came and you needed to be first in line before the store opened or you were not getting one. My parents and I were at Target for some reason I can't remember, but they were out of Wii Ice as well. My mom said I should ask the people at the counter if there were more. Obviously they wouldn't have any because everybody was sold out. They would not hide any. Imagine my surprise when my mom goes up to the counter, asks for a Wii Eye, and the person pulls one out from under the counter. Did they really have one just in case somebody asked? Did my mom call ahead to reserve it and for some reason they did? I will never know, but I do know they sometimes do have extras. And all the time stores actually do have more stock that was shipped in recently and hasn't been shelved yet. Camera repair. Due to the camera industry, and the entire electronic industry as a whole, actively taking steps to undermine competition, we are barely holding on. Steps the camera manufacturers are taking, keeping all parts breakdowns private, can't find part numbers, keeping all part price lists private, even if you have a number, can't get pricing without calling and ordering it, estimates take much longer, keeping all technical data, schematics, troubleshooting guides, basic information regarding parts, private, raising the cost of parts to point where repair is uneconomical, while still repairing items at a competitive price. Sometimes the repair cost from the manufacturer is $20 more than the cost of the part, refusing to sell parts to repair shops, i.e., Fuji, Tamron, Nikon, Ricoh Pentax, Sony, Canon being the one exception, but they are raising the cost of all parts by 35% starting August 1st, refusing to sell adjustment tools to repair shops. They have them, but will not sell them. Pricing repair and adjustment tools beyond what the market will bear. $250,000 tool required to adjust Nikon lenses, keeping all necessary adjustment software private. For the longest time the argument I'd hear from manufacturers was, well, if we release this information or sell parts, we can't guarantee the quality of our products from inferior repair. Well, if you want inferior repair, that's how you get inferior repair. Now the argument is we need to protect our intellectual property. The real answer is that repair undermines their ability to make sales. Sales drives the entire industry. Repair actually costs manufacturers money in the end. They have to have extra parts produced. They have to store them. They have to keep track of them. They have to have people to move them around. They need technicians to repair their devices and have staff to manage the repair operations. They need to create adjustment tools and manuals, kept in-house. The list goes on. This is a power play to get consumers money at all costs. For those interested, the Right to Repair Issues Electronic Frontier Foundation webpage movement has put in a lot of effort to democratize electronics repair, but received very little public attention or support. I was introduced to it by Louis Rossmann, YouTube webpage, but there are plenty out there fighting for the cause. iFixit webpage, the Repair Association, Repair webpage, edit. I'm surprised and thrilled by how visible this comment became. This edit is just to link to other associated organizations that I really should have linked to in the first place. Back in 2013, Sierra Nevada had a failure in the landing gear of the Dream Chaser spacecraft during an unmanned flight test. The video cut out right before a touchdown. They claimed there was some minor damage. I never actually saw the video, but folks I knew who did said it was quite spectacular, with the spacecraft tumbling over and over, pieces flying everywhere, etc. Anyone who was found in possession of the entire video would be immediately fired. There were a lot of other things about that spacecraft that were very shady, with very poor quality controls and design practices. Big technology companies providing really slick services, especially where you buy things online, make it look like they really have their shit together. Most of them don't. Their back-end systems are held together by virtual rubber bands and glue, and their staff stumble from one fire to another because the management teams never stop trying to develop new features to allow technical debt to be repaid. They public-facing and is just fancy enough to hide that all from you. This is as true for us as it is for Ticketmaster. Jesus Christ, if Ticketmaster looks like it has its shit together, I don't want to know what their back end is like. It's a bigger shit show than you can imagine. Trusting Ticketmaster with your credit card info is like trusting Michael J. Fox with your fine china. Holy shit, I am completely 50/50 on that joke. Edit, deleted some complaint about being skipped with the gold. It's fair, these two hit it out of the park, I just wanted to ride their coattails equals. The management teams never stop trying to develop new features. I'm lucky enough to work at a company where this isn't the case, and am actually on a project that, should it go well, will have no customer observable effects at all. That is, all I'm working on is improving code quality. No new features allowed in the project, but by all the odds, you can immediately see why not many other people do this. Customers bitch and whine constantly if they aren't distracted by bells and whistles, and marketing have a rather hard time selling the idea that if we do our job right, you'll never notice anything at all. This comic, XKCD webpage, isn't an exaggeration. We've had legitimate complaints about simple bug fixes, because some customers built their tools specifically around incorrect output and don't actually want the correct data. I love that's horrifying in that strip. Edit, my top comment so far is about XKCD. I feel like my life is complete now has been usurped. The level of understanding and customer hatred you have toward each in order to get the idea to write a comic like this, is commonplace. Commonplace. This reminds me of a friend who used to work in shimming at Microsoft. Shimming is what they call backwards compatibility. One of the cases he told me about was during one of the transitions between Windows versions. I don't know if this was handled by him or was before his time. I am rather hazy on the details. I do remember, some guy had a program he wanted shimmed to be backwards compatible with the new version of Windows. His issue: every time his program launched it would repeatedly spawn new copies of itself until the computer ran out of memory. It turns out, instead of using the API function to detect if his program had successfully opened a window, he pulled all available open windows looking for the window title that matched the exact expected string for his program. The problem was the new version of Windows changed how they title the windows. As a result, his function wouldn't find any open window with the title it expected and would try to open a new copy assuming the open had failed. This would repeat until the computer ran out of memory and crashed. The guy was adamant that he didn't need to fix his program, that instead shimming needed to change how all windows were titled in the new version of Windows. This is true of academia in general, but you have no idea how much money textbook companies spend on wooing professors. Just to give a couple examples, the last time I went to the big conference in my field, which was held in Atlanta that year, Bedford Street, Martin rented out the Atlanta Braves Stadium, bussed everyone at the conference there, about 2,000 people, gave us a free buffet that stretched through 3 rooms. We were up in the box seats, with an open bar, and they opened up all the games in the back hallways for us to play. Pearson's party was far more modest. They rented out the Coke Museum, gave us all free tour, and their free buffet only stretched through 1 freaking room, but with much classier food, but still had an open bar. Just in case you were wondering why those textbooks of yours are so expensive. Fuck Pearson. So while my math lab sucks balls in every way, shape and form, they were busy renting out the Coca-Cola Center and giving people fancy dinners. And that's just their shitty behavior at the college level. Nobody here is talking about them waving their dick around in public K-12 education. Waving their dick around in public K-12 education. That's one of the most illegal sounding legal things I've heard. Oh my god, my math lab. Fuck that piece of chimpanzee smashing on keyboard coded bullshit. That's exactly how I describe it. Like they said a bunch of chimps in a room, said code a math program, and walked out for a week, came back to a shit-covered room with a horrible program, and said this is perfect. God forbid you put a space at the end of your answer. Never bought a textbook in my life, never will. Classmates library internet piracy for life. That's why they make you use a code in the book to get into the online portal. It should be illegal, but never will be. I dropped $500 on books last semester and only open each one to get the passcode to access my homework. No book, no code, no code, you fucking fail. I started taking classes at the community college in town and the textbooks literally cost more than the classes. At the end of the semester, my friend went to sell back her barely used biology textbook that had cost her $400. She got $9 back for it. That is where she should have sold it back on Amazon, eBay, or Craigslist. Could have gotten way more money than $9 for it. Then again, you should just be renting. Amazon textbook rental prices are a fucking godsend compared to everyone else. I think the majority of academia is on the precipice of financial suicide. The sad part is, those that made it happen are laughing all the way to the bank. I'm with you. As far as academia goes, we are on the brink of financial disaster. My own school just increased tuition again beyond the inflation rate, and instead of trying to remain stable, the school just wants to expand. They spend and spend. They just broke ground on 4 new multi-million-dollar academic buildings in the past year. Students are spending more money now than ever before, because academia still has everyone by the balls. Eventually it's going to collapse, and it's going to be catastrophic. My college has the lowest enrollment rate since the early 90s right now. Instead of blaming that on the fact that they increase tuition, have professors pushing unaffordable books, make getting financial aid a fucking nightmare, and overall have just created a shitty experience for students. They blame the students. They say that enrollment is so low because people ages 18, 25 are lazy and don't want to go to college. They say that we'd rather work retail and mooch off of everyone for the rest of our lives. I had to listen to a 30-minute conversation with those points just being reiterated by administrators, and it took everything I had to not get up and tell them that they are so painfully wrong and that it is their fault that enrollment is so low. I don't know a single person who doesn't want an education, and who hasn't tried to enroll and take classes at one institution or another, but has been so beaten down by the lack of support in every single area that most of them had to give up. It's infuriating though that they just see students as walking dollar signs and don't give a rat's ass about actually educating people and making the college a place where students will willingly enroll. Let's not forget that the schools are hiring 2x as many part-time professors and half as many full-time tenure-track professors. Administration is the cancer, it seems. Domino's Pizza Tracker isn't accurate. Employees can enter shit on the computer to make your order to appear at a different stage than it actually is. The horror. Edit. Apparently some stores show where the driver is. Those are, to my knowledge, pretty accurate. The thing the employees change is the step in the series of steps to make and deliver your pizza. For example, the manager doesn't like the orders sitting on the shelf. The tracker says it's passing quality inspection, sitting on a heated rack. So he will dispatch the order before a driver is there to take it. It makes the store's out the door time more impressive for the yours. Seriously, 2 weeks ago I ordered Domino's for the last time in my life. After 10 minutes it was on delivery. 45 minutes later I call and ask, "Hey, where's my food?" She puts the phone down for 15 seconds, without muting it I might add. Yeah, the driver just left. Call back another 45 minutes later, different person picks up. "Hey, I've been waiting over an hour and a half, where's my pizza?" "Oh, I am so sorry, that driver was in an accident, we're remaking it. Pizza arrives after 2 hours, 15 minutes. "Hey, this ticket says the pizza was done 2 hours ago." Delivery guy: "Oh no, we put the time an hour back so they get out sooner. This shit is cold. It's been 2.5 hours when it said it was out 2 hours ago." I am complaining to corporate and doing a chargeback on my credit card. Tips him for bringing it. Slams door. I call corporate as soon as they open. They tell me, "Oh yeah, we have had a lot of complaints about that location. Thanks for the input." Hangs up. Edit. Just to add, I called back the next day to ask if the driver was okay. They told me they didn't know what I was talking about. All of their drivers were fine. So if anyone here is on James Island, that Domino's is full of asshole lying pricks. Edit, a letter. Also, fuck this place. I stopped ordering from Domino's for this exact reason. They'd always put my pizza as delivered within 30 minutes of my order, but it wouldn't actually be delivered for well over an hour after. My Domino's is the opposite. They put delivered and someone is knocking on my door in 30 seconds. I literally rely on the pizza tracker to tell me when to put on pants. You can't just spring that shit on me. We put our pants on to open the door for our delivered pizzas, only to be stepping out of them around our ankles on the floor 5 seconds after the door closes. Such is modern life. Used to work at a car dealership. Don't buy the first times you step on the lot. Negotiate the price of the new car before you tell them you have a trade-in. Most people negotiate the price of the new car and what they want for their old car, but when the sales manager gives the go-ahead for more money on your used car, it comes off the price of the new car, so it seems like you are getting more for your trade-in. Always ask what the on-the-road price is. This is exactly the total you will pay with fees and taxes included. Every dealership is different, and fees can mean anything. Our dealership had a sticker on a bunch of different parts of the vehicle, so if it was stolen you could trace it. Bullshit, and the fees were like an extra $400. The dealership wants you to buy their current inventory. If the vehicle there isn't exactly what you want, you have more room to negotiate the price so they don't have to bring one in from somewhere else. If you're buying a used car, always ask how long it has been on the lot for. If it just got there, it is marked up a lot. Every couple of weeks my boss would drop the price by $1,000 until it's sold. The most profit salesmen make is in used cars. Remember this. The best time to buy a car is at 0% financing, near Christmas time, as it is almost the end of the year or the end of the month, as they are trying to hit certain quotas. A lot of people are only concerned about having a low monthly payment. Put you in a brand new car for $150 a month? Sounds good, right? Not if it's over 8 years, as you will pay nearly twice as much total for the car in that time. The shorter the term, the better total cost of the car. This is actually the reverse of the topic, but fuck it, I'm tired of people calling in and yelling at me. This is what the people at my student loan company, me, desperately want you to know. 1. Go to studentloans.gov and get an account there. You can consolidate all your loans together under the company of your choice. You can get onto payment plans based around your income, where you can even qualify for loan forgiveness after 20-25 years of payments. Super helpful. 2. Again, there are a shit ton of payment plans out there where your student loan payments can be based entirely around your income, family size, and total student loan debt. Unemployed? Great. $0 in income means $0 payments for 12 months, like 80% of the time. Go to studentloans.gov and just make sure to reapply every year until that shit gets forgiven. 3. You're totally and permanently disabled and can't work. Guess what? You can get your loans forgiven. Takes some time and energy, but if you go to disabilitydischarge.com, you can eventually qualify if you've got a doctor or the VA to back you up. 4. Work for a public service or non-profit. Google public service loan forgiveness. 10 years of payments on one of those sweet income-driven plans I mentioned above, and bam, all your loans go away. 5. You working as a teacher in a low-income school. Done it for 5 years. Great. Get your awesome educator as a $5,000 forgiveness amount minimum if you don't want to wait for the public service thing. Teacher loan forgiveness, Google it. 6. 9 times out of 10, if somebody contacts you saying pay us a fee and we'll combine all your loans and give you lower payments, it is likely a scam at worst and unnecessary at best. Again, consolidation is absolutely free at studentloans.gov. 7. The big-name loan companies are almost always just loan servicers. We service the loans but don't actually own them. We didn't set up your interest rates when you took out the loans. We don't control what the Department of Education does or their policies. You want to learn more? You guessed it, studentloans.gov or NSLDS.gov if you're feeling frisky and want to see where the hell all of your student loans are. 8. Parent Plus loans are under your names, mom and dad, not your kids' names. I don't give a fuck if Lil Stevie says he's paying them down. I need to talk to your parental asses to actually make any changes, like postponing or lowering your payments. 9. Some loan servicers are pretty douchey and do shitty stuff to the customers, but we aren't all monsters. Do your research and then you can consolidate with the servicer you like instead of whomever's fucking you over every month with hidden fees or what have you. 10. Don't fucking wait until you're like 270 days past due to contact us. We aren't going to be judgmental or pissy. We just want to make sure you don't completely fuck yourself over, and by extension us by making your loans default. If you can't make a payment, just freaking call us and we will help you. Lower payment plans, postponing shit due to life money troubles, etc. Do something before you hit 60 days past due and your credit score starts taking hits and you edge towards the point where we can't do a goddamn thing for you. Sorry for the TLDR, but I get tired of people thinking I work for the equivalent of the SS when I'm just trying to help as many people get their shit paid off and or forgiven as possible on any given day. I worked for a major investment company, I won't say their name but let's just call them a something itty, and for absolutely no reason I'm trying to remember the brother of Raul Castro's first name. Well, they worked side by side with a Chinese company that was complicit in the genocide in Darfur, and we were informed that if an investor asked about this fact, we were to tell them in corporate speak, if you don't like it, take your money elsewhere. Anesthesiologist here. A large part of my job is to protect you from the surgeon who doesn't care about your 5 heart attacks, unstable angina, and the fact that you ate breakfast when instructed not to. If your case is cancelled or delayed, there is almost always a good reason. The surgeon will make it seem like it is an anesthesiologist's fault, but it is because they likely didn't care enough to ask about your medical history, didn't do the proper preoperative workup, or just don't care. Other than that, I have no secrets to report. Intraperidome awareness is exceedingly rare. 1, 20,000. I won't let people make fun of you or talk inappropriately while you're under, and we take physician medication diversion drug addiction extremely seriously. Thanks for the gold, kind stranger. I've had 7 surgeries in the last 10 years, 2 which I was awake for C-sections. Thank you. 1,000 thank yous. During my first C-section, the anesthesiologist was the one in the room who talked me through my fears. He made me laugh, talked to me about my cat, whatever fear babble came out of my mouth, he was receptive and kind. Thank you for choosing this profession and keeping people like me alive, healthy, and safe. And especially thank you for the kindness you extend in keeping things respectful even though your patients will never know. A long time ago I worked in a pet store at a mall. The company's motto was the customer comes first, which is a kind of fucked up motto to have when you're selling, you know, live animals. They obviously cared more about sales than the animals' welfare, and would push rabbit sales around Easter even though buying a rabbit just because they're cute around a particular holiday is a terrible idea. They also sold a number of exotic small animals that I'm pretty sure would have actually made terrible pets due to being nocturnal and high-strung. In short, don't shop at pet stores. Your local animal shelter has your new best friend waiting for you, for much cheaper or maybe even free. Edit. For the record, the pet store was PJ's Pets in Canada. I just googled them and turns out they are shutting all of their stores. City News webpage, best news I've heard in a while. There used to be a pet store in a mall I went to as a kid, which has since been run down and crappy. I loved going to look at the animals and I saw this super sweet bulldog puppy. My mom said we couldn't get him for a number of reasons and I started bawling because I wanted to get him out of the mall. The cages were cramped, there were too many dogs, and all the kids did was manhandle these poor animals. The pet store closed down semi-soon after that. I hope the dog ended up being okay. There's a local pet store in my area I can't even go into anymore. All the puppies are in small cages. I was there around Christmas with friends as it was in the same shopping center, and one of the pens that had like 6 different puppies and got unlocked. The woman working would grab them really roughly and throw them back in. I grabbed one before it ran off and I have never wanted to steal something more. Your flight didn't get cancelled due to weather. There's an equal chance it got cancelled because of maintenance issues, staffing, or scheduling problems. If there is a cloud in the sky at either airport, they will just code it as a weather cancellation so the airline doesn't have to buy you a hotel room meal vouchers. Edit. Wow, this is gaining some traction. People love hating on the airlines. Let me clarify a few points really fast. First, please be nice to the gate agents. Nobody likes to be screamed at for 12 hours a day for $15 an hour. It may be cathartic to roll your eyes and sigh and argue and haggle with them, but you don't see when they disappear onto the jet bridge and start sobbing while having a breakdown. Aside from that, raising your voice is more likely to earn you an escort outside security than it is to get you what you want. I'm not a gate agent, and every company has their own cancellation policies, so someone more familiar with that side of the business will have to answer your specific questions about calling them out on the cancellation. My gut feeling would be to document everything you can get your hands on, whether the timeline of the delay leading up to the cancellation, any gate changes. Try not to shove your phone into anyone's face. Like any other business heavily reliant on customer service, bringing your case to social media can sometimes do wonders. Otherwise, I don't really have an answer for you, I'm afraid. Please believe me when I say that nobody you actually talk with likes the direction the airline industry has taken in the last 20 years. Cheaper ticket prices are literally the only good thing that's happened. We wish we were back in the golden era of planes regularly leaving 3/4 full with plenty of room to accommodate maintenance and crew cancellations, full meal service, and passengers all wearing their Sunday best. Finally, remember that airline travel is not a guaranteed thing. I was being a little facetious when I said that half of all cancellations due to weather are something else. Most of the time it is weather, and you wouldn't believe the number of passengers who are incredulous that we would cancel just for a little rain. For most of you, the worst turbulence you've ever experienced in your life is still nowhere near what you would experience flying through the middle of a thunderstorm. So if you need to be somewhere, consider flying in a day early if possible, or as early in the day as you are able. Not only are ticket prices cheaper, but if something happens you'll have a way better chance of getting there eventually than the person who took the afternoon or evening flight. Leave yourself plenty of time to make your connection if it's a multi-leg trip. An hour between flights is cutting it a lot shorter than you think it is. Try to give yourself 2 hours, or 3 if it's an international trip. And if it does look like the flight is going to be cancelled, all the suckers are immediately going to start calling the rebooking center. The smart travelers are going to grab a hotel room or rental car before they all sell out. I once had the agent try to say weather when I had overheard a different agent say the ramp was stuck. I called her out on it and got our entire flight meal vouchers. It was glorious. We all went to the bar and had a drink. The garlic butter we put on our pizza crust is, in fact, garlic margarine. There's no dairy in it at all. I'll get customers calling in every once in a while who ask for soy cheese and no garlic butter, and if I'm feeling nice I'll let them in on the secret they can enjoy that garlic goodness without worrying. Garlic butter just sounds more appetizing than the truth. Editing for clarification. Disclaimer, I work for a local pizza joint, not a chain. I deliver. I have nothing to do with making any food whatsoever. I know butter is healthier and that margarine isn't vegan. I don't care. You're ordering a fucking pizza. If health is your main concern you done fucked up already, son. I'm a casino dealer in France, and like in every casino in France, the people above are not very keen on telling the customers that the tips that they give us don't actually go in our pockets. They are used to pay our salaries. And if the total amount of tips is above the total of all salaries in the month, which it never is, the difference is split between us. I've been working in the business for 10 years and there has been a single occasion where I gladly received €150 due to tips, and that was in the summer of 2006. In other words, if you leave me a tip at the table, I'll be paid exactly the same amount at the end of the month. Music industry here. If you ever want to get backstage of a show, buy a Motorola two-way radio with a remote speaker accessory. We're all black. Walk past security with a pissed off look and yelling into your radio. 9 times out of 10 security won't say a word. Edit, another secret. Backstage is not anywhere near as cool as you imagine it in your head. A whole lot of working, napping, working, laughing, sleeping. It is currently illegal to auto-dial a cell number from any equipment capable of auto-dialing, even in manual dial mode, without expressed written consent. Get name and address of dialing company and have a logger send a notice. You'll settle for a few grand per incident. Be a real jerk and get 50 numbers from a high turnover carrier, Boost Mobile. Then just wait for calls. Then sue everyone who calls because you didn't give expressed written permission. We got dinged by a guy doing that. Edit, I'm getting a lot of questions on this, so I'll try to clarify. In the US, there is a dialing law, separate from the DNC laws, that restricts anyone dialing a cell phone from any equipment that could at any time be capable of auto-dialing from calling a cell phone. This is written such that hitting redial on your cell phone would be illegal. But they clarified, this isn't how the law would be enforced. It also means that an auto-dialer set to manual mode would be illegal, but also completely impractical. Also, unlike DNC laws, there are no exceptions for businesses or prior relationships. Any cell phone, ever, requires expressed written consent to be auto-dialed. So I'm not a lawyer. I'm a net guy working at a company that does legal and ethical dialing for our clients. But we make mistakes, and people bait us into making those mistakes. We were hit with a lawsuit for some guy who bought 50 lines from Boost, waited for agencies to call him, then had his lawyer send out notices that we didn't have written consent to dial his phone. We fought it and showed we try to scrub and make every effort to not dial cell phones. Other companies probably want scrub for cells, and VoIP is starting to be treated the same way as cells. Getting the true name address of the company is nearly impossible for unethical call centers. If it's an agency or collections, they will likely be more open about it. You can try Googling the number, but don't hold your breath. Also, you will likely need a lawyer, which costs money, especially if you lose, depending on the lawyer. Honestly, do what I do. Remind them you know you just called a DNC number, and auto-dialed a cell phone with my written permission. May I have your company name and address please? And they will hang up, and you'll never hear from them again. If you have a bad company, record all your calls. To protect yourself with certain states, they could sue you back. Make sure they know it's recorded. Not all states are single-party states. How do you get the name and address of the dialing company? Whenever they're calling me, there's some scumbags not exactly forthcoming with information. Every time I ask them that info, they instantly hang up on me and never call me again. It's a good way to get them to leave you the fuck alone. Those are criminals. The services they sell are usually unlicensed scams, and as far as I can tell, there's literally nothing you can do, and nobody in authority, anywhere, at any level of government, gives a single shit about it. How do you prove they auto-dialed you? Edit, guys, I'm not asking how you know it's an auto-dial. I'm asking how do you prove it? I'm an EMT. We are legally obligated to take you to any hospital, anywhere, you want. Any single one. NNBSP. Edit, holy hell, I didn't think anyone actually read any of my comments. Okay, so I should clarify this. I was speaking about seriously extreme technicalities. I work in South Jersey in a town 20 minutes outside Philadelphia. Going into Philly is even a stretch. We will go there for severe and specific emergencies. RMs works under protocols dictated by the hospital we choose to follow. In this case, Cooper in Camden, NJ. In protocols and taught by the state, yes, we do have to take you where you ask. However, no, there is no way we're going more than an hour away. We will gladly arrange a long-distance medical transport for you, but there is no hospital in the area that cannot treat any possible ailment you have more than adequately. I have a town of 40,000 people I look after, and there is only 2-3 ambulances on at any given time. We simply can't afford to be out of town for so long. NNBSP, TL, DRO, we will transport you anywhere you want within reason. Hey, my dad's alive because his EMTs knew to pass by the county hospital literally down the street and take him to the fantastic heart center 30 miles away, all while keeping him alive after in-home cardiac arrest. After that, I will go anywhere EMTs want me to. Thanks for all that you do. I want to go to the medical bay in the International Space Station. I have a heart disease that has to be treated in 0G. Worked injection molding almost my entire life. My uncle and father rebuild molds in a mold repair shop. Almost every mold that has a made in the USA texture somewhere in it will have it removed. A lot of companies do not want their parts saying made in the USA. Their reasoning is if you know it was made here, then you know there is someone to sue. If it's made in some shop in China, you're less likely to pursue legal action, whether bogus or justified. I work in market research and do quality and assurance. I essentially review all of the data our interviewers collect from respondents. Aside from that, I also edit the data so it makes sense because some people say wild things. I also recode responses and often replace open-ended responses with what I feel is appropriate. Surveys that were ended too soon due to the respondent hanging up, I go into those and complete them. I don't even call the respondent back, I literally put whatever I want. We do surveys for political issues like upcoming elections, customer satisfaction studies, and for colleges, universities. We even have a recurring study that collects data from people who were impacted from the BP oil spill. We recently picked up a job the IRS wants us to conduct too. It really opened my eyes to look at where data comes from and how honest that company is who collected and validated the data. Edit, a word. The workers at the airport handling your luggage, we usually call them loaders, don't really care about your luggage. It's just differently sized and varies in weight. Edit, a lot of people are calling out airport workers on stealing. This is not what I am referring to when we don't really care about your luggage. I'm mostly referring to when we are actually loading the aircraft or placing the bags on the trolleys. Everything has to happen now or 5 minutes ago. We don't really have time to steal. Even if we did, I don't think a lot of us would. Formerly worked on an AT&T project, still work for the component manufacturer AT&T uses to run its networks. AT&T works closely with the NSA, more so than other carriers. T-Mobile is a German company, so they don't work with them directly. They get their traffic spied onto but by their backhaul providers working with the NSA. AT&T deals with the NSA directly. I've seen their fiber taps in many of their cell sites. I work as a janitor housekeeper for a veterinary clinic. Most of the time, it works the way it's supposed to. Other days, 3 people will call in sick when we are already understaffed and the animals already there are at risk of not being looked at 4 hours at a time. A puppy died since no one was watching it in the incubator. Another puppy was crushed due to mom being left in the cage. Someone also fucked up the amount of anesthetics on an animal undergoing oral surgery and it woke up during the surgery, bleeding from a clipped main artery, and almost died screaming. The people working in the back are mostly interns who are learning how to do the job. A few of them will be responsible for the death of someone's pet and usually it is avoidable. 1. Make sure you ask questions when you bring your pet to get something done. 2. Document everything and keep copies of any incidents or behavior once your animal is home. 3. Pics and video or it didn't happen. 4. Get a lawyer. That will help if something happens with your pet and the hospital fucks up. I'm a chemist and throughout my education and career I have observed that scientific fraud is widespread and there is little interest in doing anything about it. I seriously doubt the validity of any sort of scientific data because of this. It's so simple to do really. Cherry-picking data can be as simple as just not writing down a number you don't like, or even writing or entering a different number. Anytime there is money involved there is strong push to please those paying the bills. Many times I have been asked subtly or not so subtly to repeat things until the desired result is achieved. No one out and out tells you to fabricate things, but instead it is usually implied that your work is somehow flawed or you must have made a mistake. Do it again. I can look over someone's raw data and usually tell if they are cooking the books or dry labor, but it is all but impossible to prove. You can also tell by someone's workload. If you are putting in hard 12-hour days and your colleague spends most of his time reading magazines, something is up. Also, you could put a full camera crew in front of a lab worker and they could 100% fabricate data and you would never see anything to indicate that they were. It's just so easy. There are legit good ways to detect stuff like this. Things like statistical analysis in blind samples that are independently verified. This is almost never done. Edit. To all the folks asking about climate change, I'm not even going to touch this issue. No comment. Former concert venue manager here. The really high service fees you pay are mostly fictional and determined by the venue owner to get you to pay more than advertised. Also, in my personal experience and from talking to the bands, most places vastly underreport their earnings for the night to the bands, so most of the money you spend on tickets doesn't support the artist. If you want to support them, the best way is to buy music and merchandise directly from them. My mom used to be a manager at a Goodwill. Every week, if the products had cycled through the colors and nobody had bought them, they had to be destroyed before they threw them in the garbage so no one could salvage them. Super expensive china or collectible. Smash it. Brand new book that didn't catch anybody's eye. Rip it in half. Shatter or bend whatever you could. If you were found gently tossing things and or hiding them to buy for yourself, fired. The only thing they didn't throw out was clothing. They'd tear those into pieces and sell them as rags to companies. Just seemed like such a horrible waste to me. I worked for a company that employed the mentally disabled. The average mentally disabled employee got paid 11 cents an hour. The few who did harder work, heavy lifting, etc., got paid 50 cents an hour. I only found this out when my manager left paycheck stubs sitting out. It upset me, so when I inquired about it they said that technically they are school so they didn't have to pay them at all and they were doing them a favor. I quit shortly after. Contractor here. Tips, secrets for getting contract work done in your home or on your property. 1. Get 5 bids. Let them know you're getting 5 bids. 3 isn't enough. 2. Circle back to whoever you liked best and tell them what the lowest bid you got was and ask them what they can do for you. If they have a good reason for charging more they will tell you. If they don't have good reasons, they will definitely have bad reasons. 3. Ask how long the job will take and then make them commit to it in writing. Stipulate a penalty for being late to start, late to finish, and for missing days. If they are telling you the truth about timing your work, this will be no problem. 4. Say, I need certificates of liability and workers' compensation insurance from your insurance companies that name me and my property. If they say anything about no problem, don't use them. 5. Ask, what else do I need to ask you? 6. Verify that they are licensed to do the work they are doing and that the license is current and applicable. Check with your county office if you're not sure. Edit. Formatting, added 6. Edit. Apparently most contractors don't like it when you do this. They prefer you just take whatever price they want and let them do the job at their leisure. Up to you. Booking a hotel room through a travel website is a bad idea about 100% of the time. If you actually want to get the best deal, you should check the price through whatever website you like. Almost all of them are actually Expedia anyway. Then call the hotel and ask if they can beat it. They will 100% of the time. The booking company charges about a 30% commission, so on a $200 a night booking, the hotel only makes $140. So if you call and say this website is selling me the room for $200 a night, can you beat that? They will almost always say yes and give it to you for $180. It's an extra $40 in their pocket and you save $20. Edit. As many people have noted, this works less consistently with big chain hotels as they have different priorities. I mostly deal with smaller independently owned boutique and luxury hotels. In general, a random hourly employee at a Best Western can't change the price of a room due to a phone call. Sorry for the misinformation. I used to work for Comcast doing back-end order verification, confirmation, and correction. Basically I fixed all the fuck-ups that regular idiot agents made. What they really don't want you to know is that no single department really has the whole picture of what's going on with an account at the basic agent level. My department was all managers and we were the ones doing sub callbacks. On top of this, there is no standardization on account notes, so all the departments have separate shorthand for putting notes on accounts. Thus, if you talk to billing and then sales, most likely the sales agent will have no idea what the billing notes mean. It's a clusterfuck and I'm glad I'm not part of that shit show anymore. Hardware industry here, distribution specifically, but I imagine this is the way it is across the board for retail. Not everything has the same percent markup. Some hot sell items, as we call them, and some expensive items like power tools are barely marked up at all, but other items, nuts and bolts for example, have insane markup. Try like 80–90%, the reason being that if an employee has to spend 20 minutes hunting something down for you and it ends up only costing 10 cents, then it's not worth the store, my clients, time to sell them. Across the board though, markup at retail level works out to around 40–60% depending on who you purchase from. We call it robot radio because the vast majority of radio stations these days are just a computer in a closet running music. That DJ, they are likely 1,000 miles away and the servers go out and pull the audio via FTP, voice tracking. That same DJ is on dozens of stations across the nation. And no, that is not their real name, as their name changes between markets. And no, they likely don't know, care, or have any interest in the music genre, format, on the station you are listening to. Most stations these days don't care about you, the music, quality of the signal, or anything other than sales figures. If it is on the air and playing spots, commercials, it is making money. That's all the owners care about. Fire protection engineer working in commercial building industry. Nothing significant gets changed in the building codes unless a major disaster happens, and only if it doesn't cost too much. Sometimes these changes are superficial. Also, non-government members of industry get to sit on the code committees. So something's required by building codes out there because someone lobbied the correct person, or is the person that owns a company which stands to make a lot of money, not because the thing adds to life safety of a building. You know that your Measure A tax dollars at work sign along the road. All of us construction guys are all getting paid as much as $74 hour, $48 hour minimum. California. Yes, public works jobs pay everybody the same. Even if we refill cups, sweep the street, have a hard trade, we all get paid $74 hour on weekends overtime, $48-ish normal. We are even paying high school juniors seniors $74 hour. Did I mention overtime starts at 2 p.m. and we love working on the weekends? Edited for proof, TDT, Imgur webpage. I worked at a very well-known theme park known for happiness and magic and all that good jazz. Not really any insider secrets, but I found out that some food locations can't tell customers no. If someone runs up to them and goes, "Give me a milkshake," and I refuse to pay for it, then they can't say no to them. I'm so glad where I work we could say no to people like that. However, if you got like popcorn and ate it all, then punched out the bottom of the container, you could come up to me and claim that your popcorn got spilled. I'd look at you like you're a big fat all liar, but I would have to give you another popcorn because it'd be considered mean if I don't. I should know. This happened to me. We all knew she was lying, but we aren't supposed to berate guests like that. The only thing I can't give you for free is alcohol. Optics Insider. Lenses are sold for wholesale cost anywhere from $0.25 to $40 and resold for retail at $150 to $800 depending on different factors. Online retailers, brick-and-mortar stores, and private practices all get their lens supply from a handful of lens labs. So you're probably getting the lens crafter's equivalent of an $800 lens for $300 at a private practice, but for $50 online. Be wary of manufacturing defects when ordering online. Take your online purchases to a local optometrist and tell them you bought it at Costco and you're just having troubles with. Ask the optician to check any online purchase glasses after receiving them. Brand-named frames are often cheaply produced along with non-brand frames. When picking frames, take a glance at the hinges. Cheap frame hinges will be composed of 2 prongs on the temple, the legs of the frames, and 1 prong on the actual frame front to connect the legs. Otherwise known as a cheap shit hinge. You'll find these on your $600 Tiffany, Chanel, GG, etc. glasses all the goddamn time. If these hinges break, it's game over. What you should look for is hinges composed of 5 total prongs coming together. 3 on the temple and 2 on the frame to form a solid connection. If you have a VSP plan, lens crafters will tell you that they can bill your VSP plan as a self-submit plan. You will lose upwards to 80% of your benefit this way. Do not use your frame allowance at an out-of-network provider. Ask whoever is helping you if this store isn't a network provider. If they tell you something about self-submitting, they are not in network. Not quite a company, but law schools in the United States. In the past, most lawyers who went to a Tier 1 school and did decently well could be expected to do very well upon graduation. It wasn't uncommon to earn $200,000 right upon graduation. As a result, law schools became a cash cow for universities. They began opening at an alarming rate, charging outrageous amounts of money, which was almost all kicked back to the main campus. But it didn't matter because people were getting good jobs upon graduation. Then the legal market collapsed following the housing collapse. Law firms rescinded offers from new graduates and fired huge amounts of their staff, or shuttered their doors entirely. As the economy as a whole has improved, the legal economy has improved as well, albeit slowly. But things are not back to where they used to be. Many law firms discovered that they could get by without huge amounts of attorneys on staff. If they ever needed additional attorneys for a big case, they began to rely on contract agencies more and more. And why not? They weren't responsible for any overhead, any sort of benefits, and they could pay a pittance of what they would pay for an attorney on staff. And once the case was over, who knew what sort of work they'd have coming their way afterwards? So why keep the unnecessary overhead of a person on staff? Before the legal market collapse, these sort of contract attorney jobs got paid very well. You'd make maybe upwards of $100 an hour, work for a few weeks and make a good chunk of change, and then pay off some bills, put some money away, and lounge around until the next job came calling. But with law firms using contract agencies more and more, this market is booming. And they can pay a lot less than they used to with all the lawyers graduating from law school. A lot less. We are talking people with saddled of upwards and over $200,000 in student loan debt accepting jobs for as little as $18 per hour. And there is no stability. Many agencies will actually lie to their contractors just to get them to commit to a project, saying that it'll last 4 months, and then end the project after just a couple of weeks. And you don't have a guarantee of that lost pay. You didn't work it, you simply don't get paid. This sounds like the market is finding itself, and this is simply good economics, which is fine. But the problem is that law schools are still big business. While the number of applications to law schools dipped for a couple of years, there are now more than there ever were before, with big promises of cushy jobs and even cushier paychecks. Universities and for-profit colleges are gobbling up all of these students' tuitions, because it's big money for them, and they have zero obligation to their students when they send them out into the cold with no job prospects in sight. FL, Dr. 98% of law schools in the United States are a complete scam. So, I went to a top 50 law school in 2011. All the statistics showed that upwards of 95% had jobs at graduation with a median pay of around $120K. Turns out these statistics were lies. Apparently they just hadn't updated the data in years and years. The stats now show that around 58% of students have a job on graduation, with a median pay of around $68K. Yet, the biggest problem, as I see it, are the employment figures. They're just barely accurate enough to not be outright fraud. But between counting any job in any capacity as employment even if it did not require a law degree and hiring graduates themselves right before the reporting deadline so those students are technically employed, it's a complete travesty. I want to repeat that for anyone even considering law school. In order to bolster their employment figures, the school itself will give temporary jobs to recent graduates just before the deadline so they count as employed. I consider myself fairly lucky that I fumbled backwards into a decent career, but I'm filled with rage when I think about new students being misled. I used to work for a tax accounting practice, and pretty much once the tax accountant prepares your tax return the first time, the next time or next year will take about 1/2 to about 1/3 of the time to complete, and they will charge you the same as last year or sometimes more for time billed. Yet there is a chance someone's entire return could change etc, so that will entail more work and they'll usually charge you more, but 90% of the time it takes less time the second time around, and interns are usually doing it too. I'm a tax accountant, and as much as I hate this job and my boss, we honor the time it took to complete a return. We always tell new clients that it may be a bit pricey the first year, but once everything has been established and we have our work papers in order, the following year will be much easier and cost less, so long as they don't introduce a new schedule or anything like that. However, our senior accountant was in a rush to get returns done and wasn't paying attention and found out some older lady who asked us to her taxes didn't actually need to file due to the income threshold. The senior accountant went to the boss and owner and explained the situation. He still billed this poor old lady. I'm currently looking for a new job. I hate tax so much. I work for a large disaster relief blood donation company. The big red plus sign. When you donate blood to get your free Chipotle voucher, or to get a ticket to the zoo, the company thanks you for the donation. On the back end of things, we break the blood down into different components: red blood cells, plasma, platelets, and sell each of them. Leukoreduced red cells get sold to a local hospital for $150–400, plasma for $100–175, and platelets can be processed and sold for a few thousand, depending on blood type and need at the time. I get that it does save lives and it is necessary, but it doesn't sit right with a lot of people the amount of money that is made from a donation. Carpenter here. If we accidentally damage your furniture, be that either in the process of building, repairing or installing it in your home, we cover up the damage with colored wax. We have all the colors. You won't see anything of it if you don't look for it. What you don't see, you won't complain about. Edit. We might even use a co-worker to distract you while we cover up the damage secretly. We are doing it right behind your back if necessary. We have no shame. I'm sure this is old news by now, but I used to work at McDonald's, and I think everybody should know that the Big Mac and the McDouble are the same exact sandwich with different toppings. Both sandwiches use 1/10-pound patties. A Big Mac is literally 1/5 a pound of meat. If you order a McDouble, you can pay an extra, like 80 cents for them to put mac sauce and lettuce on it, and you'll get literally the same sandwich for half the price. Please spread this. I hate McDonald's. This actually isn't true at my current organization, but as a fundraiser non-profits mostly use volunteer opportunities as a way to get you personally invested in their cause so that you will donate. Your money is much more valuable than any amount of your time. Edit. Of course this isn't always the case, and many organizations rely heavily on volunteers to remain in operation. I've just worked at a couple places where volunteer opportunities were a ruse to beef up individual donor mailing lists and get those sweet corporate dollars. I volunteered with an animal rescue that recently got shut down for abusing the money. The director literally spent the first 4 months of 2016 on vacation, while the dogs were being neglected and in kennels they were sharing with dead dogs. Dentists know a lot about teeth and pretend to know a lot about everything else. If it's not tooth related, they probably don't know it. They don't know what equipment is in their office, how any of it works, how much it costs, or why they even use a majority of it over another brand's similar product. Oh, also, at the semi-mandatory annual dental shows, they all pretty much just eat a fuck ton of candy. Oh, also, at the semi-mandatory annual dental shows, they all pretty much just eat a fuck ton of candy. This is the most heinous thing I'd read in this thread. All these hip, American, technology companies regularly use and abuse H-1B visas. Wikipedia webpage. They like to pretend their employees are their greatest assets, and then they essentially hire indentured servants for 60% of what they hire locals for and who can't switch jobs easily. One of my last jobs had 5 Indian workers renting one apartment as they sent money back home. Tech companies are routinely petitioning Congress for more H-1B visas because technology workers with those skills don't exist in America. I've got mixed opinions about it because I've made many friends with H-1B recipients and it's not as if their goal is to steal our jobs. But I've also seen them used to depress wages and replace regular full-time employees. Throwaway because I'm about to rant like a motherfucker. Apple severely limits the number of chat and phone support advisors it has working at any time, which generally causes customers to sit waiting in queue for quite a while. They just began this practice to save money. Once customers do get with an advisor, they may be met with someone Apple trained, or they may get someone who has been outsourced and has received shit training. If the customer got an outsourced advisor, chances are their issue will not be solved, and they will call or chat back in and be pissed off. Considering the usually wait times, that's not fun to deal with for the advisors or the customers. While the chat advisors used to take up to 2 chats at a time, Apple has now forced them to take 3. It may not seem like much, but trust me, that third chat is like adding a completely new job to the role. The 3-chat thing went over so poorly that they've actually had to put a freeze on it for a month while they hire more outsourced employees to handle the waiting volume. Apple talks about how it prides itself in its customer satisfaction, but in the past 6-8 months it has turned into a turnaround mill. Advisors' jobs aren't to focus on you to solve your issues anymore. It's to get you out of there as quickly as possible, because you cost the company money. Another insider tip about Apple support: most of the info they use to solve your issues are online. Plus you can solve just about anything by restarting your phone, resetting settings, or backing up and restoring the thing. If a restore doesn't work, then bypass chat and phones and set up a goddamn store appointment because it's likely hardware. So there you go. Apple is forcing customers to wait forever for shit service and the same few troubleshooting steps we tell everyone. The photography industry. I made a new account just to answer this. Sorry for the wall of text. Here are a few quick things. The items with the highest markup are filters, memory cards, and LED lights. Buy them used if you can. UV filters do block out some UV light reflecting off of haze, and can act as a protector. But if it's not super hazy, and you're not super clumsy, there is no need for one. If you do decide to buy one, get one with high quality glass like B+W or Hoya HD3, because why in the hell would you want to put crappy glass in front of good glass? My subjective assessment is to quality of photos and/or cameras goes Fuji, Sony, Pentax, then Panasonic. Canon and Nikon might be the most popular, but they are nowhere near the best. The cost of memory cards constantly changes for retailers, like its own little stock market, and usually have a markup of 30–100%. Most camera and lens manufacturers don't give a flying fuck about actual camera stores. They try very hard to get you to buy directly from their website where they can make the most money. If not there, then through Amazon, Best Buy, or B&H where they can still sell large volumes. Except no one at these places usually knows the first thing about photography and will be of little to no help to you when you need it. Some companies and groups still support actual camera stores to some extent and want them to do well. Companies like Fuji, Delkin, Sigma, and ProMaster, a company that only sells to camera stores, do a reasonable job. You will learn far more about what you are buying and how to use it, and far more quickly than online, by going to an actual camera store, assuming they are not assholes, than you will anywhere else. And now about spiffs, commissions. Canon, Nikon, Sony, Tamron, Sigma, Delkin, and Hoodman all give a commission to salespeople for selling their equipment, but getting that money can sometimes be hard. Tamron, Sigma, Delkin, and Hoodman are the easiest because at the end of each month you're simply cut a check by the rep based on what you sell. Canon and Sony are fairly easy as you claim your sales through online systems. Canon will actually put the money into your account, whereas Sony puts it onto a prepaid card where you have to pay a fee at an ATM to get it in cash. Sony pays the best commissions by far, usually 30–50% higher than anyone else. Although recently most models from all manufacturers no longer pay out, Canon can be especially bad at this, only giving commissions on items that are not popular to try to move them. And Nikon. Holy crap, Nikon. To claim a sale on Nikon, which they recently did away with all spiffs, you have to first go to their online system and file the claim. But then in order to get your money you then have to fax or mail the damn receipt into them. Fax or mail? You can't upload a PDF like the others. Fucking fax or mail. Now onto the former bane of my existence. Camera and lens rebates. Any third party that sells new cameras or lenses, including brick-and-mortar stores, are actually forced to sell the equipment below cost. In order to make any profit they have to file claims the following month with the camera manufacturer detailing who bought which piece of equipment, the serial number, date, and name and address of the customer on the receipt combined with a specific form for that model and time period. Also, the reseller almost never gets the full rebate amount paid back in full. They usually only get between 70–80% back of what the rebate was. For example, let's say a lens initially cost the consumer $399 with a $100 instant rebate. The reseller will only get $80 back from the manufacturer, and only if they fill out all the correct forms with the proper receipt and submit them on time. If a lens initially cost the reseller $349, then they go from a theoretical profit of $50 down to $30. After doing this, the retailer will typically only make a profit of between $10 to $50 on each item. That's before man-hours or overhead. This all has to do with the rebate system used in the industry. You see, new cameras and lenses all have a specific price set by the manufacturer. However, there are always some kind of rebates going on with certain pieces of equipment at any given time. This is why when you shop for new camera equipment on places like Amazon you see that the price has been reduced by a certain amount. That's the manufacturer's current rebate for that item. Rebate cycles are usually monthly, but some companies, like Panasonic, sometimes change their rebate offerings on a weekly basis. This further takes away from any profit made because it takes many man-hours, and thus money, to constantly update all of the rebates over all products for that specific time period, as well as all the time it takes to file the rebate claims. Not to mention the general overhead of the business. When it's all said and done, any brick-and-mortar camera store makes very little money, or it actually costs them money, to sell new cameras and lenses. But they are forced to sell brands like Canon and Nikon because they can't really call themselves a camera store if they don't. In order to stay in business they have to make all of their profit on accessories, used equipment, rentals, and classes. Companies like Sony, Fuji, and to some extent Panasonic, all have higher profit margins than Canon or Nikon, mostly because they are trying to get a bigger part of the market, which right now Canon and Nikon still hold a huge share of. But if given the opportunity, I would not be surprised at all if they lowered their margins once they get more of the market. One last thing, from everything I've learned in the past about the inner workings of Nikon and their business practices as well as their seriously messed up distribution system, I would not be surprised at all if they shut down their camera division within the next 5 years. The LDR buy used when you can. The quality of the product is usually the same. Buy UV filters only if you really need to and get a high quality one. Support your local camera store because that is where you will gain the most knowledge the fastest, not from the dumbass at Best Buy, the seller on Amazon, or even YouTube. Also, the store and their employees are getting royally fucked by Canon and Nikon. Work for a university. 60–70% of our students don't need a degree. They should really go and get some professional degree from a technical or community college. 1. You will end up making either the same or more money, most likely the latter. Plumbers, carpenters, mechanics and even nurses easily out-earn most academics. 2. You won't have much debt. 3. You will don't have to feel like shit because you are not really interested in Cultural Geography 101 or Philosophy 102. A college degree is great in many ways, but most folks don't really need them. Been a casino dealer for 8 years. Surveillance operator for a year. A supervisor, as well as a pit boss. So I'll share a couple. Carnival games such as 3-card all have what are called shuffle masters. They spit out each hand. They also can sort the cards from ace to king and come out in our order with his clubs, spades, diamond then hearts. Surveillance can only see, they have no sound. Players' cards are used to track laundered money and player spending. Aside from promotional options, American roulette is made for suckers. In blackjack we cut 2.5 decks at the back of our 6-deck shoe to limit card counters. We treat guests different depending on their status at the casino. Yes, VIP get to bend the rules a bit. Former congressional staffer. Believe it or not, the vast majority of people in Congress are friendly and good to each other. A lot of the passionate hate you think you know about bipartisan politics is drama and bullshit. Most people there on both sides of the house are not hateful or bigoted. They aren't racist, they aren't anti-Semites, they don't hate the poor, they don't hate the wealthy, they aren't homophobic. They're just people, except for the guy running against your guy. Fuck that guy. Call center worker. If the agent sounds like they give no fucks, that's probably because they are burnt out and literally give no fucks. You can make their day by just being nice and cooperating, no matter how annoyed you are. That person who you're shouting at and being a cunt to. Yeah, that's us. We're generally paid peanuts and have to sit here for 8 hours with the phone cord plugged up our ass listening to you whinge and abuse us, back to back. After you've shouted at us it's straight on to the next person and the next etc. Hell, I can't even go for a piss without entering an code on my phone, which you can bet management will be on my ass for the next day. Micromanagement is the worst in call centers. You think we just answer phones? No, in reality we have to juggle a metric shit ton of metrics and red tape, deal with grown-ass adults acting like children and deal with management riding our asses over petty shit. 26 seconds late back from your break. Here's a formal warning for call avoidance. Tech support call centers can be pretty bad. Again, you have all of the above but the fact that the customer is usually a complete idiot and shouldn't even be allowed to use a computer as their weapons grade stupid. I've tried nothing and I'm all out of ideas has never been more relevant. You want to know why you've been waiting so long to speak to someone? Because we're dealing with an influx of idiots, adults who can't think for themselves, people calling to complain and people just generally calling because they are too stupid to read a manual or use Google. However much we want to tell you that, we can't, because calls are recorded and of course if we say anything to upset you, dear customer, you special little snowflake, then the world would implode. Guess what, asshole? Complaining about the wait time only increases the wait time for everyone else. Do you think I just sit here and play with my balls all day? No, I don't. Even if I wanted to, I'd have a manager on my ass after about 7 seconds asking why I haven't taken another call. There's a wait time because there's other morons calling us and the world does not revolve around you, Mrs. Entitled Titties. Now shut the fuck up and tell me why you called so I can tell you why you're stupid and what you're doing wrong. And trust me, you will be doing something wrong, and whatever mundane issue you're ranting to me about will absolutely be 100% caused by your own stupidity. However, please do continue to berate me as it's ultimately easier than accepting responsibility yourself. So far I've only covered rude asshole callers. Don't even get me started on people who are just difficult. Well madam, here's a perfectly reasonable and straightforward solution to your problem. I'm not going to do that. Get me your fucking supervisor now. Sigh. You could call up and abuse the fuck out of a call center rep, then go on to demands and management will lick your ass. Call center management gives no fucks about agents on the front line. It's all about their precious customers. The agents are purely numbers on a report. Working on a call center is like working in a third world sweatshop, except with stricter management. Someone watching your every single fucking move and pulling you up for every single minor mistake you make. Working on call centers dealing with the public is soul crushing and people burn out in a matter of weeks, hell, some even in days. Have a little respect for these people. They have to deal with a level of shit that most people don't even realize exists. Whoever thought up the phrase "the customer is always right" was clearly an asshole. Call centers would be 100% better and more efficient if agents could simply just tell customers how it is and hang up on assholes. Agents spend way too much time pandering to assholes every whim for fear of them being unhappy or dissatisfied. Most people who call a call center, from my experience, are complete and utter self-entitled cunts and need a slap back down to reality. But yet, no company would ever want people knowing the above. I work in the pharmaceutical industry. Always look on back label of your drug package. Do not buy your pharmaceutical drugs from third world places like Brazil, China, Indonesia, Thailand, etc. Yes, the FDA inspects these facilities, but the general hygiene habits of the workers leaves a lot to be desired, and holy crap, do they cut corners. Batches that would have been outright rejected in the States are allowed to be sold on the market by their internal quality departments. The FDA and EMEA don't inspect these facilities enough. Hotel desk staff here. Basically, I can and will lie to you about literally anything. My boss encourages me to say whatever I have to, and I take full advantage to cover up how shoddy the place really is. Also, I decide your price based on how inconvenient your reservation is to me personally. Usually I charge well under standard rate, but if you come in at a bad time or are rude, I'll quote you the maximum I'm allowed to. Also, the absolute best deals for hotels are on Groupon. You'll probably save at least $50. Edit. Rereading this post, I definitely get why you guys are calling me an asshole. Just to clarify, standard rate at our hotel is $150, but I always charge $99 unless you're rude. Also, a lot of people call or show up on our busiest days with large parties and no reservation. That's when I jack up the price. I definitely came off as malicious there. Sorry everyone.